Welcome back to the show. Today is a very special day. It's a somber day. It's one of remembrance since it is September 11th. And for anyone who was alive and cognizant of the world around them in 2001, they probably remember exactly where they were and what they were doing on that day when they first heard that an airplane had hit one of the towers in New York City. I am so honored today to have in the studio with me Jasmine Rodriguez. And it's because Jasmine was at Ground Zero
That's correct.
that day
Yes.
when it happened. And the work you were doing was with St. Vincent's Hospital
That's correct.
in emergency preparedness.
Yes, that is correct. We were the closest level 1 trauma center to Ground Zero. So we were probably a quarter of a mile away, which was very close. And when you consider the New York blocks and streets. So my function that time, I was the corporate media relations director and government relations, which really consisted of all the communication that was going in and out throughout the hospitals, etc. What were we going to be doing at that point? But it was only one plane at the time.
Right. So you were on the subway, or you were
Yes.
you were traveling to work that
Yes.
morning.
Yes.
Beautiful, clear blue sky. You told
Beautiful.
me.
Beautiful.
Yeah, when we were chatting before, it was that way here in Central Texas. A beautiful, clear blue sky.
Not a cloud in the sky.
Not a cloud in the sky. Not a care in the world. Until.
And so I was in the subway, and I was thinking, because the day was so beautiful, I thought to myself, oh, it's going to be a great day. Nothing can spoil my day. That evening, I was going to go to the Yankee Stadium on a date, basically, and I remember saying, well, I hate the Yankees because I'm a Mets fan.
But I'm gonna go.
But I'm
anyway.
going to go, and I'm going to root against them, So for me, it was the perfect day.
Oh yeah.
And so
Root against the Yankees.
exact. So something changed from the time I went into the subway and I came out.
You just knew something was going on.
As soon as I got off and I was walking toward the floor level, something had changed. And I it's hard for me to explain, but it was like something around the air that I felt, as because I was still in the train station, but coming up to the floor level, then I saw many people kind of looking up.
Yeah.
And I wasn't certain what they were looking at because the exit was in the middle of the block, and people were looking from that corner upward around the bin. So I started walking, and I said, this looks like, from the scene Independence Day. Mm-hmm. When people are looking up because, the aliens are coming or whatever. And so I get to the corner, and I look at the World Trade, and I see this little hole, what appeared to be a small hole. So I tell this gentleman that's next to me, well-dressed with an attaché case, I said, what happened? As I'm looking for my phone. Mm-hmm. And he says, a small plane rammed into the World Trade Center. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I start looking through my bag, finally found my flip phone, and I called the ER, and I said, are we ready?
Because you knew right away you were going to have
We knew we were going to be
injuries,
busy.
for sure.
I knew we were going to be busy. I knew that I was going to need barricades. I knew that we were going to have the staging for
the media.
For the media.
Right.
And for those that we were going to use for the press conference and the press briefings. So I said, did the red phone ring? Now, anybody that's in healthcare knows that the red phone means multiple casualties. Yeah. And so they said, yes, Jay, and everything is ready for you, meaning the staging is ready, everything is ready to go. So I started to kind of run, and I'm calling my husband, who is an ex-husband now, but I was calling him because he was in one of the banks up north of Manhattan. So I said, did you, and I told him, do you know what's happening? And he goes, no. And I said, a small plane rammed into the World Trade Center. And he goes, oh my goodness, because they hadn't gotten the news yet. It had just happened. And so he says, no, we don't know anything about that. And so as I'm talking to him, I hear kind of a like a rumble, if you will. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't think I've ever heard planes, in Manhattan or anywhere. Because when you live there, it's kind of white noise.
I was going to say, it's probably just the noise of the city.
Correct.
Yeah, right.
And I thought it was part of that. Well, as I'm on the phone talking to my ex-husband, I hear the rumble, and then I see a plane, coming out through the buildings. And I didn't see the impact. What I saw was the ball, of fire, basically. Mm-hmm. And I knew then, I remember telling my ex-husband, I got to go. We're under attack, I think. And so he says, get out of there. And I'm like, no, I got to go in. And, the flip phones, I just went, boop. And then I started to run. And by the time I got to St. Vincent's, already everything was set. Maybe about an hour later, we started to get a lot of the media. By 11:30, we already had like 600 outlets out there.
600.
Yes, it was the entire area, of the hospital, of the ER section. But they weren't even in the streets because we needed to keep the streets open, since we had exactly. And so they were more in the park side of it, but we had barricades. And I have to say, you being a reporter, me being a reporter in the past, they behaved like never before.
Good.
And
that's
so,
a good word.
And I think it was because, they were shocked, as we all were.
Everyone
exactly
was so stunned. I think that was the most telling thing to me, that for the Western mind to grapple and with the idea that there could be that much hate, there could be that much evil in the hearts of someone's, in this case, these terrorists, to take that many lives on purpose. Well, you were looking at this happening. Did not occur to you, though, did it, that the building would fail, that the building would fall?
Oh, not at all. I don't think no one really thought that it would fall, because there were these strong, true buildings, in by Battery Park, and nobody thought, when you look at them, they were massive and beautiful, and according to documentaries done afterwards, they were well equipped.
Yeah.
And I remember, going in there, for meetings or whatever. And the offices were all around, almost like the Pentagon, where you have, the elevators kind of in the middle, and then all of the offices are kind of around. And, it's hard to fathom. It was hard for me to fathom that they would come down.
But you said a gentleman standing next to you
yes.
is the one that pointed that out to
yes.
you.
So the director of the paramedics for St. Vincent's Catholic Medical Centers was a good friend of mine. And he was next to me because he was also vying all of the ambulances that were coming in and leaving again, dropping off victims and going back again. So he was manning that while I was manning the press. So he was next to me as we're kind of looking, disbelief. And he says, Jay, look at the top. And I said, what? He goes, look at the top. And I'm looking at the top of building 2. And he says, that's going to fall. And I'm like, no, it's not. No. And he goes, so look well. And then he says to me, look at the last floors. Not the whole thing, just the last floors, maybe 10, 12 floors from the top down. And so I looked, and what I saw was, it looked like a sponge, because they were erected like this, but then it kind of went out like a sponge. And then I remember just being mesmerized by it. And then it came back in. And when it came back in, it just imploded. It went downward. And that's I think everybody, close to Manhattan, the media, anybody that was watching it on television, I'm sure they were all in disbelief, just like we were. So I saw the towers fall, as well. And it was hard to fathom that because these were two iconic buildings that took years, to build. And here we are in one blow, and they're imploding right before our eyes.
How far away from it were you?
So about a quarter of a mile.
Really?
So
close?
it was pretty. Yeah, we were really close. We were the closest level 1 trauma center, to ground zero. And also we took care of a lot of the area in Manhattan. So our scope was really expanded with time. So it was very just shocking to see those towers fall like that. And one of the things that people ask me about is, of course, the smoke.
Yeah, the smells,
the smoke. But those are two things that I will forever remember. And it's interesting how our senses, right, are there. I mean, we're not supposed to see things like this. This is not why we were created, and then to hear, the sounds, and also to smell, so all of our senses were, kind of, on point, that day. And so the smoke itself really was debris.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of the people, it wasn't just the smoke, but the pieces of debris that were also in those clouds that, were overwhelming people, and enveloping them. I always I like to mention that it looked like a snowy day, in Manhattan, because it was all white, basically. And so, but
that was asbestos and heaven only knows what in
Exactly.
the building construction.
Everything that was just, in that debris. I still have to, here almost 25 years later, I still have to check annually my lungs, because that was one of the big things. A lot of people passed away, that were closer to the debris
as a
and
result
the
of just being exposed to it.
Yes, the exposure.
Yeah.
And a lot of the first responders that were closer, like the firefighters and the police department, a lot of the survivors, also. There's still people being added, to the fatalities of that day. Right. And so again, almost 25 years later,
it's more
here
than
we are.
the 3,000 we were hearing
Yes.
at the time.
Oh, that number has gone up,
Yeah.
through the years.
Vivid memories you have of what you saw, though. You saw people actually falling from the building.
Yes. People that just opted to jump.
Yeah.
And I always think to myself, if I were in that position, what would I do? Would I stay behind and just burn, or do I jump, take life into my own hands, jump, and then call it a day? I lived in Hawaii for basically 21 years. And the one thing that equates what happened in September 11 was Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
Those sailors did not know who the enemy was. They didn't know that it was the Japanese that attacked them at the time. Just like in this case, a lot of, those people that were killed did not know who the enemy was. So almost the same thing. And it's really sad to say that. Now, as far as going back to people jumping, that is probably what will always break my heart.
Yeah.
Sometimes, the sounds of what seemed like bricks or pieces of the building was actually people that were falling and just crashing. And so the sound was really perturbing to many of those that were closer to ground zero.
Yeah. And you have told me that the sound of an airplane still kind of gives you pause.
Oh, yes. Occasionally, not all the time, but and now that I'm at Advent Health, we have Fort Hood, so there's a lot of activity.
Oh, yeah,
And
you
there's
hear all
also
kinds of helicopters, you hear it
yeah.
all. Yeah.
And there's also, the airport that's close by. So once in a blue moon, if I'm outside and I hear a plane that's coming close, as they make their landing, it gives me room to pause.
Yeah.
Because it takes me back to that day. And it's not to be sensationalizing anything. It's just a piece of PTSD. Also, now I have short hair. But when I had long hair like yourself, and I would blow dry it, sometimes, how the hair sometimes gets stuck in there.
Yeah, and singes.
And it singes.
Oh, yeah. Ooh.
That smell is also part of what takes me back.
Really?
Maybe that's one of the reasons why I cut my hair.
Just cut it
I
short.
don't know. Yeah, but that takes me back as well. Yeah. So there is that PTSD component, that I think I will probably forever, have. Yeah. And I don't run away from that because I think for me, I never want to forget.
No.
So even though the planes, will give me pause, or the smells would also give me pause, the reality is that for me, I'm part of that history.
Yeah, no question.
And I never want to forget that.
No. And that's really part of our purpose here.
Yes.
Because they're a whole generation of folks who were not born then.
Yep.
And again, it's remote to them. And it's important that we remember this day. So much more I want to talk to Jasmine about, though. So we're going to take a quick break, but we will be back to talk more about your actual work in the days following dealing with the injured. So stay with us. There's more of the show ahead.
The 4-burner, side sear burner with Clearview glass stainless steel grill from Monument Grills. Made of tempered glass, which is strong, insulated, and allows you to check your grilling without lifting the lid. Our porcelain-coated cast iron cooking grids offer a large cooking surface of 513.3 square inches, primary cooking area, with even heat cooking. The Monument Grills include LED control knobs and are easy to light with pilotless electronic ignition. Better grilling, better value, Monument Grills.
And we're back with Jasmine Rodriguez, who is the Director of Marketing, Communications, and Development at Advent Health Central Texas, which is how I got to know you. But I am so taken by the story that you have to tell about being in New York, working at St. Vincent's Hospital at the time, which now no longer exists.
No longer exists since 2010.
So things change with medical facilities and so forth, and I'm sure there were just a lot of changes in New York after 9/11.
That's correct, yes.
That just had to happen. Now there are memorials there to the lost. But let's talk about what happened. So you're on the job. This horrific disaster has befallen the city. And, of course, not only there, but obviously in Washington, D.C. at the Pentagon,
absolutely.
and also in the field in Pennsylvania. And so it was a massive attack on the United States.
Yes.
But your job was, what your job was.
Exactly. And that's, it's interesting how people will react. You never know if you're going to fight or flight, as they say.
Yeah. You
And-
could have just said,
Yep.
I'm out of here.
I'm out of
Goodbye.
here.
Yeah.
And there were people that did that. They
I
needed
bet
to
they
be with
did.
their families, and that's fine. You can't judge that. For me, I don't know. I just maybe was created that way, but I was more like, okay, no. I got to do this. So there was there was some times when I wanted to, maybe sit down and cry, but
There was no time.
But there was no time.
No.
Reporters were asking questions. We needed to make sure that we had everything under control, because in 1993, and I know we talked about this, but in 1993, during the first attempt, we took care of those survivors and victims as well.
Yeah.
So while they were in there, there was one of the reporters for one of the newspapers, well-known newspapers, pretended to be a victim, and she lacerated herself to get into the ER and get a story from
Get
that.
out.
Thank goodness that one of the nurses, one of those tall, burly nurses,
A guy nurse?
that are Irish, saw her, and I wasn't there at the time. I wasn't
Yeah.
working there at the time, but she saw that. This
Oh, no, it was a
reporter.
lady nurse.
It was a lady nurse.
Okay, but big. Yeah.
But just burly and tall.
Okay.
And she saw and she goes, "What are you doing?"
Oh.
And she saw
Was she
her-
recording or writing?
She was writing.
Okay. Oh,
You know
my
that little
goodness.
tiny booklet.
Yes, the reporter
So she
pad.
was the reporter pad. She
Wow.
was writing there, and so anyway, she was of course kicked out, never to come back to our hospital. And then when all of the other hospitals around the city heard about it, they also said
Banned her.
no entry. Exactly.
Well, you have to protect the patients.
You do.
And that, part of me goes, that's pretty inventive, but nah.
But it's in poor taste.
Yeah,
to do
right.
that. There's other ways of getting the
Yeah,
story.
no. And that honestly, that was your job. That was
Yes.
your job, was to, because there was this voracious appetite by the public to get information.
Absolutely.
Because again, we didn't know what had happened. There was so much fear related to just the unknown
Yep.
of who had created this attack. The building we're in now was closed. It was because it's the one tall building
Right.
in Waco, Texas.
Right.
Could the same thing happen to this building? So yes, the ramifications were huge. And what addresses that is information.
Correct. And you have to control the information. And that was my role.
Yeah.
My role was to make sure that I knew what was it that the reporters that were camping.
Hundreds of them.
Yes. They needed to know. I wanted to know what is it that you need to know? What is it that you need to know? And that's how I was using my runners, what I call them runners. And so this way we're controlling the information. We're giving them the information that they want so that they can then, do their story or air the interviews that are going on. So my job was to do that, also to handle the press briefings. Who is going to speak next? So if several reporters wanted to know about, let's say, what are the injuries that you're seeing, then I would pull the ER director, to go on camera and go to the podium and talk about these are the injuries that we're seeing. Why? Because now, again, we're controlling the narrative, making sure that everybody's getting the same information.
Right.
How it's reported, that's different, but, everybody, you will have their own angle. But that's what was happening. And that was my role, to make sure that, okay, got to make sure this is happening. And sometimes even off of the conference brief, I had people asking on the side, Jay, can I get to speak to one of your EMS people, or can I speak to that doctor that just spoke, on the side. So it gave me an opportunity too to be on the side with, these reporters and whoever was being interviewed, because I wanted to make sure that they weren't sensationalizing
Right.
the story. It was already huge in itself.
Right.
So
Exactly.
no need for that. But we didn't have that. We didn't have anybody doing that. Thank goodness.
It was a global story as well.
It
So
was,
you had
yes.
reporters from around the world, and I know you had told me that there was an Indian reporter that
Yep.
wanted to talk to an Indian doctor in their language,
Yeah, exactly.
and you were able to put them together.
And it's also, it's not like if at 11 o'clock, once the news is done, there's nothing to do.
Oh.
It's not like that.
All night
The
long.
rest of the world was getting
That's right.
was getting up.
Yeah.
So there was no time to sleep at all. I think I might have slept during those 2 weeks that I was there, perhaps, if I had to guess, about 6 to 8 hours, because it was constant. And
How did you do that and protect your health?
well, you know what? I think it's, you either do it or you don't.
Yeah.
And I think that other public relation directors or communication directors have asked me, years later, how did you do that? I mean, I don't know, and I think for me is, my answer is I did it. I was there. I got the information out. I try to do the best I can, with the resources that I had at the time, because everything had kind of, all my resources were limited. And so I think that when you're in that situation, you're either going to get things done or you're not. And so something like that, for me, I already know the answer. And the answer is, I had to get it done. And I think that I was given the fortitude, by God to help me through.
Right. You do what you're assigned to do. I remember when that all happened, I was solo anchoring at Channel 25 because my co-anchor, Ray Peters, had completed his contract. They had not replaced him yet. So, and then this horrific major story breaks. Of course, it was a national story, and ABC News went wall to wall, and we were doing what local angle there was, just how local people were reacting, and all that kind of thing. But there's just so much that you're absorbing as a reporter, even as an anchor, that it was several days later. I'm in my kitchen and I'm looking at my little TV, flipping through the channels during my lunch break, and I see some story from, it was like some outdoor channel, and they were in Alaska panning for gold, and the scenery was so beautiful, and the impact of what had happened to this beautiful country and I'm standing in my kitchen just bawling. So it's like you never know
you don't
when
know.
that outlet's going to happen. You're going to fall. So you had obviously much worse trauma than I did, but how do you handle that now? Even all these years later, you kind of touched on it, but you still have some PTSD from this.
And sometimes when I talk about it, it depends who am I talking to. It depends what the moment is, but sometimes it hits me, and I will start bawling or get choked, as I'm speaking about some of the things that I saw. There were two. I didn't cry at all during that time at all. So I moved to Hawaii.
So you left that job.
I left that job and I went to Hawaii. I did become the communications director for one of the hospitals there. And a friend of mine knew about September 11 and my experience. And she is one of the disc jockeys for one of the Christian stations there. And so she says, Jay, can you call in and talk a little bit about September 11, since it's September 11.
Yeah.
And I said, sure. And so I call, she introduces me, we start talking, and all of a sudden, I'm like, I couldn't even continue.
Yeah.
I started bawling
Wow.
on the radio, and felt so, because you can't see me, right? But here you hear these sounds coming out of this person that's being interviewed, so that was, one of my first that it kind of came out. The second was, so my ex-husband and I, we were teaching a premarital class, and we had about 200 couples that the church had arranged for us to, talk about different topics like conflicts in marriage and whatever, and seasons of love, whatever. Ours was conflicts in marriage. And so my ex-husband, who's amazing, he goes, Jay, let's just do all the conflict stuff and talk about how that is. And then at the end, just take a moment and talk about September 11. And of course, for us, it's also making sure that you say you love each other, et cetera, right?
Right, because so many people
were calling.
Trying to communicate, I know I'm going to die.
Right,
This is not going to end well for me.
Right.
And
I'm
maybe
sorry
they
for
left
this.
that person on bad terms.
Yes. And that happened quite a bit.
Yeah.
So here I am, kind of giving a quick synopsis of September 11, and all of the sudden, and here we are, 200 couples, all of the sudden, I couldn't talk. Yeah. It just hit me again. So I look at my ex-husband for help, so that he can maybe interject. And, well, no, he kind of goes like this, like, go ahead. And in my mind, I'm going, we're going to have some conflict tonight, because and
I can't go on.
yeah, and I couldn't go on, and it was, and you do, you know how we are, the ugly cry,
It was not a
and
pretty
that,
cry.
yeah, the nose, and it was not pretty at all. And so I had to take a moment, and then I continued.
Yeah.
But I think we touched quickly about people calling, and a lot of people were calling our hotline, and it was a help hotline. But you can talk about whatever was happening. Mm-hmm. And so we got a lot of calls to our psychologist, and
Because
they
St.
were
Vincent's had a
yes,
psych area.
yes,
Big time.
and it was on the side as well,
Right, right.
just ready for these calls. And so people were calling in and stating and crying.
Yeah.
I lost my husband, or I lost my sister, or whatever that might be. And I was upset at her this morning.
Oh.
And so, or I was upset on September 11th that morning. And so how would they ever know how much I did love them, or how much, I forgave them, or asking for forgiveness? Right. So we had a lot of that too, that happened during that day. That's why that part was so important for the class that we were teaching, because it hits the point about forgiveness and also love. And so I always tell people there's two things, positive things, I believe, that I learned from that day. And one of them is, telling those you love how much you love them, because you don't know, when you may not see them again.
Yeah.
On both ends. And I used to tell couples and people, I love my husband. There are days I can't stand him. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And even at night, sometimes, you're upset, going to
So
bed.
I'm not even going to talk to you.
Yeah, and I don't want to talk to you, and don't touch me. I don't want to feel your skin or whatever in bed. But I always used to tell my ex, I'm not happy with you, but you need to know that I do love you, but I'm just not happy with you. So don't talk to me, and that's okay. You're letting people know how much you love them in spite of our human nature. The second part, of course, is forgiveness, which is huge. People walk around with a lot of grudges, and that sometimes is family grudges, or I haven't spoken to my mother or my father in 20 years.
Isn't that sad when you hear
it's
those
really
stories?
sad. It's very sad because, that unforgiveness, and I know one of our pastors, I used to always hear him say, unforgiveness is you drinking a cup of poison and expecting the other person to die. It's really you.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is for you, and many times it's also for the other person, but it's for you. So I think that those two things for me were really important, and I learned, that day how to appreciate people, how to give grace, at work, when you don't want to, but I think that those I really hope that people, who are listening to this or seeing this podcast will keep in mind, for the future.
Well, and it is important to remember.
Yes, absolutely.
And remembrance is a big part of this nation's focus, really, on 9/11, or certainly should be, so that the younger generations do know, yes, there is this level of hatred against us and our way of life. And they don't care who you are if you just were going to work that day, doing your thing, and to snuff out those lives, the pain and the trauma and the pathos involved with that day, it's hard to even describe, even today.
Well, it's surreal. Right, it's still surreal to me.
It was.
When I moved from New York to Hawaii, it was a drastic change for me.
I'll bet.
I changed not only.
Were you kind of trying to put that behind you?
No, I
don't think so?
No, I think, I always loved Hawaii. I always went to Hawaii, when I had vacation time. So I'm not sure that it was that, unless maybe subconsciously it was, But, when I moved from New York to Hawaii, I wasn't only moving from one state to the other. I was moving from one job to another. And on top of that, I was changing my last name because I was getting married.
Yeah.
So I remember when the first September 11 happened, when I was, the remembrance when I was in Hawaii. I was like, was that even me? Did I go through this? Because there was such a huge change.
Right. It's like a
in
different
that
life.
Totally different life. And so I kind of, so I wear, my September 11 bracelet because I was a first responder, and I wear it every September.
Yeah.
September 1st comes. Whether it matches my jewelry or not, it's going to my wrist because I always want to. And it's also a point of conversation for the younger generation. I mean,
Yeah, so what is that?
Yeah,
bracelet
exactly.
you're wearing?
Yeah, exactly. What does it say? So, I mean, even my staff, I have young people in my staff.
Yeah.
They weren't even born. And so to explain to them in detail what that day was about, and how it came about and why it came about, and some of the positive things that emerged from there is important to do. I loved September 12th. It was for me a day, and I was at the hospital, of course, but it was the day that I just felt that, our nation was so what's the word? United. It was united.
I vividly remember
and so patriotic.
all the Congress people on the
Yes.
steps of the Capitol singing "God Bless America." Of course,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. And we, even in Manhattan, I told you about the streets that we had to keep clear. Well, I had never seen tankers come down. I had never seen a tanker, period.
Yeah.
At the time. In Hawaii, you see them all the time. But here, I had never seen it, much less coming down, the street. Right across from our ER. I had never seen that before.
Yeah.
And because we still had the press there, I was really close, and all, the tankers were like right here. And I'm like, oh my word. Like it was
What am I seeing?
it was surreal to me as well.
Yeah.
And then of course, President Bush also was, brought through those streets. Now, Giuliani, our mayor, was amazing. And in his book and in his video, Giuliani's September 11, he will say that he was coming down from Uptown, because he had to make his way, and of course it was lights and sirens. And he says that he didn't realize how horrific the events were unfolding until he passes St. Vincent's and sees all of the gurneys and sees, the ambulances. Then he said, now I know that it's really serious, And so that's kind of a tidbit, that I always remember. And I was watching one time a lot of these documentaries because I can't stop watching it when they come
mentioned
up.
Giuliani's book. What other documentaries do you think are worth the time to watch?
Yes, there's one that I really encourage, and that's Floor by Floor.
Okay.
And it says Floor by Floor, September 11. And it is probably even a greater story than what I'm saying, because these are individuals that were stuck inside of the buildings, and they show two different perspectives of two different buildings with different people coming down, and try to make it down, etc. And there, it's so touching, so I really encourage that. I encourage also any of the documentaries, during this time that you'll see, like in Discovery or some of these other channels. And I was watching Giuliani's 9/11 several years ago, and I was in Hawaii, and I'm watching and everything. All of a sudden, I see myself right behind the press conference. Yeah.
There you
and
are.
I'm like, oh my gosh.
I never thought that you were going to be.
The heck no, because I'm
camera.
always behind, directors of communication, etc. They're always behind the scenes.
They're behind the scenes.
I don't like to be, when you come to, Advent Health, always behind the scenes,
Yeah.
you know. And so it was interesting when I saw myself, and then my staff, then they actually bought me the DVD.
Oh, so you have it.
Yeah, so I can have it, because I was like, okay, yeah, I saw myself. All right, you know, that was
Yeah.
cool. But yeah, it was again, going back. It was a somber day, and I make light of it now, you know, in certain, because I think it's also a coping mechanism. You know, when you talk
Yeah,
about
you,
it.
you have to laugh, or we'd all be crying all the
Correct.
time, because
Correct.
it was so profound. So there is a wonderful memorial in New York. Have you been to that,
Yes.
to see that?
Yes, I have. I was actually invited when they were cutting ground, and at the time, but I couldn't go. So when it was built, a lot of us first responders were invited, and so I went with my women's group that I belong to. And we went, and it's interesting because they prayed for me before we went inside, because they knew, right? But prior to that, you know, you have the names, right, of all those that perish. And it's kind of done in a block formation. But it's interesting because both areas have all the names, but it's the same size as the building. And then there's water, you know, coming out, you know, and it's touching. But when we went inside to the actual memorial, it's truly heartbreaking in many ways, because, you know, there's one portion where you see some of the pieces of blocks, right, the building there, and you hear kind of the stories. But there's also the staircase that one of, you know, several of the survivors came down from. So they have the piece of staircase there too. It's about maybe probably about 10 feet, you know, and they showed the crushed fire engine, you know, that was in downtown that was crushed. So they show different things, but there's an area that is closed off somewhere like this. And when you go in, the first thing it talks about is that it was a day, you know, it was voting. We were voting for a new mayor. And so you see kind of the newspaper ads, you hear, you know, the anchors talking about it. And it's just in passing of that day. But there's a section that has the voices, and it says voices of 9/11. And it's people that were in the towers, most of them, I'm sure, perished, that were calling their loved ones. And the messages are so chilling, you know, and even today when I think about it, it just, we say in Hawaii, chicken skin, but it's goosebumps, right?
Yeah.
And you can hear, you know, someone calling their loved ones, you know, hey, just wanted to let you know, I'm on floor, 69 or whatever. And I try to make it down. I can't make it down any further. I don't think that I'm going to make it home. And they're saying, please tell so-and-so that I love them. Please take care of our kids. Talk to them about me. Those kind of messages. I could not go any further after that. I just couldn't go any further into, so I never got to see the entire, memorial because it just choked me up and I had to leave. But I do encourage all those, if you're in New York, please stop by. It's also a way of paying tribute.
Sure.
And it's also a way of every, dollar that you spend in the tickets to go in, et cetera, really does help the cause, of families, et cetera. So I really encourage that.
Just so important to remember.
Yes.
I'm so in your debt, Jasmine, for spending some time with
you
me
for
today
having
to
me.
tell your story. It is profound and moving, and
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you doing this, on behalf of all those first responders and myself. Thank you so much.
well, and thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you.
Stay with us. There's more of the show ahead. In fact, we're going to be hearing from Rosa Hernandez and Kimberly Cables about the Bell County Senior Expo. So that's coming right up.
Revive Superfood Smoothies. Peel, blend, and enjoy. Fast and easy, and I'm out the door.
Fabled Bookshop and Cafe is hosting Hobbit Day with a great Baggins bake-off. It is once again time to celebrate the hobbits we love so much, and this year with an extra special and delicious twist. Join them Monday, September 22nd as they bring back some fan-favorite activities, including a scavenger hunt, table games, and costume contest as they debut the Great Baggins Bake-Off. 12 incredibly brave people will be competing in a dessert competition to win all of the bragging rights the Shire has to offer. It's $10 to enter and secure your spot in the first bake-off, so come and enter early. Art on Elm is happening September 20th. Art on Elm is an exhibition and event featuring local artists, musicians, and food and craft vendors, and just so much more. Join Cultural Arts Waco on September 20th for Art on Elm. Finally, the Robinson Family Farm is opening for fall festivities on September 27th. Get ready for helicopter rides, pig races, food trucks, putt-putt, farm animals, zip lines, axe throwing, pumpkin patches, crazy desserts, live music, and so much more. Plan your visit to the Robinson Family Farm soon. I'm Elizabeth Riley with your Act Locally Waco News, and I will see you next time.
And welcome back to the show. You know, I've told you several years now about the Bell County Senior Expo, and it's time for that to come back up again. We're talking about September 23rd, and the delightful Kimberly Cables is here with us. And Rosa Hernandez joins us now. She's home
delightful
health.
too.
And pardon?
She's delightful.
She's
too.
delightful. I know that. I know that's right. But I just want them to know what you do. You're the manager of Home Health and Hospice.
Yes.
The area manager for that. So that's a serious thing.
It is.
Takes a special person.
Takes a special person.
It
And so it's wonderful to have you here today to talk about the Senior Expo, because this is a huge, just a convention, if you will,
Yes.
for people to come and get information.
Yes.
Say, from you, Rosa.
Yes, absolutely. It is. It is free information that we don't realize what we're going to need in our daily lives or our future, and conditions can change so fast.
Yeah.
And so this expo really helps people get every type of information that they might need.
Yeah, and you expect thousands, right?
Yes.
Yes. Last year, what you do is you enter, you vote for your favorite booth, and you're entered to win the grand prize, which last year was $1,200 worth of gift cards. And we had 4,712-ish
Wow.
entries for favorite booth to be entered to win that grand prize. Yeah, it's a huge turnout. We never could have expected this. And really, over the past 3 years, it has just grown so much, tripled in size. We're now in the big exposition building at the Expo Center, which holds 250 booths. We'll have the first Cav band out to entertain.
Oh,
So
how
I'm
fun.
excited about that. They're a lot of fun.
Tell them about our theme.
Oh, our theme is military.
Oh, well, that's great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's the 250th anniversary of the Army, Marines, and Navy.
Yep. Right.
And
As
so-
we look toward next year, the
Yes.
250th of the U.S. Yeah.
Yep.
We wouldn't have had that if we didn't have the Army.
The military,
Right.
exactly.
Didn't we have them? Have them?
Exactly.
So
right.
that's wonderful. Of course, you've been doing this for a number of years, so this is not your first rodeo to put this
No.
expo on, and
Yes.
and it takes a lot of coordination to
Yes.
welcome that many adults, senior
Yes.
adults, many, but any age
Any
can
age.
come. If you're a younger person and you're caring for a senior adult, man, this is for you, right?
Yes. And I think that's a target audience that we have really not reached yet because it's the working people, the children are having to make decisions for their elderly parents and they don't know where to go when they need it. They don't know. So this is a good opportunity for them to come and find out what the resources are.
And you have breakout sessions as well.
Yes, we will have Paul McRae with Fairway Home Mortgage. They just changed their name. I think that's right. And he's going to talk about reverse mortgages and the advantages and disadvantages to that. And then we will have Melanie Castleberry with the Sitcog in Belton.
She's going to be talking about veterans' spouses benefits.
That's the one.
You know, and
Which
that
is
is
huge.
something, some spouses surviving don't realize there's money out there.
What all is
That's
available
right.
for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So all valuable stuff, plus lots of door prizes, lots of things for people to just sign up.
Entertainment. There's a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And we encourage everybody to go by every booth because each booth will, has their own unique things that they provide. And so the resources are phenomenal. We have how many booths this year?
250.
200, you maxed out.
And I know I don't like to drive far to find out what resources are available. And so we want every senior related industry from every street, from Waco to Lampasas. So folks can find their perfect fit. And, all of it under one roof. So you don't have to call a bunch of places. You don't have to drive around. It's a free event. So just all the information in the world is available here. And there's $10,000 worth of door prizes.
That's awesome.
Including a 5-day cruise. So lots of folks really go out and make the big door prizes.
And I do want to go over parking. We do have some golf carts that were donated for this event. So we'll have drivers so that if you need a ride, you will have that. You don't have to walk all the way. We also made it 2 entrances. So that way you can, not everybody's standing crowded. We don't know what the weather's going to be like. We could be
You never know.
pouring. It could be hot sun. So, but we've added that. So we've learned and grown a little bit to pick up and know what seniors need and what anybody attendance really, if you just want to ride, because the parking is so huge, we've accommodated that.
And there will be, there's 10-foot aisles in this bigger building. So folks that couldn't attend in the smaller room because of mobility aids, now they can. So with 10-foot aisles, there's plenty of room for wheelchairs, walkers, lots of extra seating available for resting. So, of course, this is a senior-friendly fair, so we want to make sure we're all inclusive for all abilities to be able to come.
Absolutely.
Well, it's a perfect facility for something like this because there is a lot of parking. It's all flat, straight in, and you've got ways to help them get in with drivers and golf carts. It's perfect. It's perfect. Lots of great food. I mean, if you get hungry, this starts though in the morning at what time?
8 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Okay, so
and there will be concessions open.
Well, it is a tremendous gift really that you give to the community, to this segment of the population, because there is a lot out there. There's a lot to help them.
Every year we learn new things
that are
available.
And I'm sure people come in and really, their lives can be made much easier when they learn about these things.
We are medical providers, and I tell the physicians, I said, please tell the families not to be scared of the word hospice, because we are licensed medical professionals that we take care of. We can do pretty much a lot of things in the home, except for surgery, is what I tell families.
Really, well, that's true.
We have pharmacies that open up in the middle of the night. We have a medical physician that's available to us 24/7. We have nurses 24/7. So, we really can take care of a lot at the home.
So you can learn more about hospice care at the Senior Expo.
And our office is a storage unit with all the Senior Expo bags we're stuffing and getting ready.
Oh, everybody gets a goodie bag.
Yes. So as you walk in, you will get a Senior Expo bag. It's got a couple of newspapers, a subscription form. We have some wonderful students from the Delta program in Belton ISD. and the work-based learning program in Temple. And they're the ones that stuff these bags, and they come twice a day for the past 3 weeks to get all these bags ready for y'all. And so what we do is we say, hey, if y'all want to subscribe to the Belton Journal, we'll mail it to your house, $21 a year, and half of it goes to the students. You can choose if it goes to Temple ISD or Belton ISD.
That's
and
great.
It's just a little reward to those kiddos for working so hard. I say kiddos, most of them are twice my size. But there's so many folks behind the scenes that you don't realize how much work.
Well,
it's
I know
around the clock work.
Yeah, and the whole year you're planning on this, but I'm glad you made
Yes.
a nice shout out to the Belton Journal and and your employer.
Yes. And so if you want to copy that magazine, just email me at seniorexpo@beltonjournal.com. And then we also have an Eventbrite where you can get free tickets at Bell County Senior Expo 2025.eventbrite.com. Too many things for me to remember this early in the afternoon.
You're doing well.
And so
So
get
this
you
is
a magazine.
Coming up on
That'll tell
Tuesday.
you all you can expect.
Yeah, Tuesday the
Look forward to.
23rd, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Bell County Expo Center. Rosa?
I think it's called the
Kimberly?
Cadence Center.
I know
I
that.
know. We know it
I
as the
know
Expo,
that, but it's the big gold dome in
It
Belton.
is the dome in Belton. Just
That's
Cadence Center.
some old
Yes.
habits are
I
hard
get it.
to
I
die.
get
We were
it, but
raised on
yes.
Fort Hood,
I know.
and we went
Yes,
to all the
we are.
rodeos at the Bell County Expo Center.
I know.
Yes,
I
yes,
know.
yes, yes.
Well, so this is at the Cadence Center.
At the
You're right.
Cadence
The
Center,
wonderful
yes.
people at Cadence,
Yes.
Cadence Bank
Yeah.
are supporters.
GPS has now changed it to Cadence.
No, on GPS it still says Bell County Expo Center.
Well, so there you go.
So either way you put it in,
Okay, either way we put
you
it in
can
there.
just come
Okay.
and find us.
You can find it, and so
yes,
be
yes.
there. That's
Yes.
great.
And thank
It'll
you,
be lots of
Anne,
fun.
for always helping us promote the event
Yes,
because,
thank you.
as many years, and we've been doing this 15 years.
Yeah,
This is our 15th
this
year.
is,
That's awesome.
There's still a lot of people that don't have this information.
yeah. So, and this is the way to get it out.
Yes,
so.
it is.
Appreciate you both. Rosa,
Thank you.
Kimberly,
Yes,
thank you so much.
you.
Stay with us. There's more of the show ahead.
If you visit the 9/11 Memorial, you'll notice that people place flags, flowers, different trinkets on the names of their loved ones. But every now and then, you will see a single white rose. When you see these white roses, they are placed here by the people who run the memorial, and they have a very special meaning. These white roses are birthday roses, and it means that today would have been this person's birthday.
The names arrangement is the most special thing about this memorial. When you look at the names, it looks like a random arrangement, but they're not random. It's fundamentally about grouping people with the people that they were with when they died that day.
Thanks for being with us today. Join me again tomorrow for another edition of the Ann Harder Show. You have a great afternoon.